Hello folks, welcome to the series named The Placement Guide, where we help students to know about the hiring processes of their dream companies. Do like and share this video. Also, don't forget to subscribe the channel for more such videos. Today, we have a very special guest amongst us whose name is Sonali Goel. She had earlier done couple of investment/VC internships in 100x.vc and Samyakth Capital. She is currently working as an investment analyst in 314 Capital. Thank you so much, Sonali, for accepting our invitation and coming up to the show.
Sure, my pleasure.
Let's deep dive into your journey. Could you walk us through your journey? Like, how did you got interest in investment and VC space?
Sure. So, I remember in school, I was a part of the entrepreneurship club, and that was a point when I started learning about startups, where I started reading up about them. And then after school, when I graduated and got into college, I was then a part of an actor. So that is also where I kind of, spend more time with startups, trying to understand how to build a business up. And what are some other, more basic or more startup terminology around ARR, what is MRR and all of that. And after Enactus, I actually joined a startup as the head of strategy and investor relations, and I was heading fundraising for them. And that is where I first interacted with investors and how investors look at businesses. And that is where I got, a slight bit of interest, I would say, into how the other side works, how venture capital and investing works. And by chance, I came across this internship by 100x VC, applied, got through, spent almost 5 months there. After that, I moved on to Samyakth Capital because I discovered that I really liked fintech and I wanted to spend more time on fintech. So I moved on to Samyakth Capital, which is a fintech focused VC fund, and spent almost 6 months there as an intern. And then I graduated and joined 314 Capital. So I think most of the things that have come by have been purely luck, honestly. But yes, I've really enjoyed being in this space.
Yes, the journey seems really interesting, and a lot of your experiences in your college related to startups helped a lot.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
So, how do you think the scope and importance of startups and VC in the future?
Um, businesses always come and go, so startups will always remain in the ecosystem. VC, honestly, I doubt, given that the world is moving towards Web3. So I feel like more DAOs will come up, and VC will just now be rebranded as DAOs. There will always be people who invest on, and there will always be people who build. It's just that the structure would be different. Something like a DAO, which would essentially be run by VCs, is just that the front facing or the name of the way it's done, it will be different. But yeah, they'll always be investing and building.
Yes, that's interesting perspective. There are many disruptions being done by Web3 and other things to the traditional system. Can you tell in brief what does 100x.vc and Samyakth Capital each do?
Sure. So 100x VC is an early stage investment fund. So essentially what they do is that they actually pioneered safe notes in India. So they put in a check for about, I'm not sure what the updated number is, but when I was interning, it was about 25 lakhs for 7%. And essentially they started investing in early stage startups. Samyakth is also pretty much similar, where they put in, there's no minimum check size, but it's also an early stage micro VC fund with some notable portfolio companies like BharatPe, um, PSafe, etc. But beyond that, it's also like a fintech focused, fintech first micro VC fund.
So can you tell about your both internship experience, like how did you applied and what was asked in the interview process there?
Sure. So I think there will not be a lot to take away from my interviews, mostly because I have been in this space for some time now, and I already had some idea about what the VC or the startup terminology is. So at 100x VC, my interview was more around how I look at businesses, what are some sectors that I like, and it was taken by Vatsal. It was a very interesting, I would say, interview. I think I completely bombed that, but I somehow got through. So that was a fun experience for sure. For Samyakth, I was more confident during that time because I'd already spent 5 months, talking to startups one-on-one and, evaluating them. So there, my answers were more precise around what sectors do I like, why do I like this, why do I like that, what I see is next in the ecosystem, and what is coming next in fintech specifically, and more around, how do you end up evaluating a startup? So how do you look at businesses? That was more. I think both my interviews were around the same sort of tangents. How do you really look at a business, and what do you think is next?
How has been your experience in the demo day at 100x.vc and at other places?
Sure. So 100x VC's demo day is one of the marquee events that we have as a batch of interns. So for any intern, you're part of two demo days. So that's a very hectic time. You're preparing memos, investment notes, really just trying to prep the current cohort for a raise. So that's a very, very exciting and a hectic time. Other events are also very interesting. You get to meet people, you get to understand who are the different people in the ecosystem, and obviously you talk to them, exchange notes, try to learn from what they think and what they see in the ecosystem. So events are always exciting, and meeting new people as well.
Yeah, that seems really interesting experience in the demo day. Can you tell in brief what does 314 Capital do?
Sure. So we are an early stage tech fund. We're based out of Bangalore, and this is the fifth fund that we're deploying out of. So this is a vintage that we raised in 2020. It's a $200 million fund, and we typically end up doing more early stage investments, so something between a pre-seed to a pre-series B. And we write checks up to 5 million, 6 million. That's our typical, that's a higher cutoff for our investments. But other than that, we're an early stage VC fund, sector agnostic, so we invest across sectors. And I particularly look at consumer, fintech, and Web3 deals at 314.
So what was the shortlisting process at 314 Capital and how is your overall experience there?
So the overall experience is really exciting, man. I feel like it's a very fast place, given that it's such a big fund, and the investment process also is really quick. So you have to get a lot of work done in a couple of days, which is always exciting, but also very hectic. I think one of the more interesting things about 314 is that it's such a small investment team, but the other part of the fund is so big. Things that support our portfolio companies around legal, portfolio management, finance, and growth and capital development. That also contributes to a really big uplift for our portfolio companies. And other than that, I feel like the shortlisting process for 314 was also pretty straightforward. I had an interview. It was more around a little bit about me and a very small sort of a guesstimate sort of around. Post that, I had to submit a case study on fintech, which I did. And after that, I had a partner level conversation more about how do I think about the portfolio companies. If I like some portfolio companies, if yes, then why? If I don't like some companies, if no, then why?
How does a typical working day for you looks like at 314 Capital?
So as an investment analyst, I have a pretty sort of a defined role, I would say. So I'm supposed to talk to scout for startups, source them, talk to them, see if I like them, see what they're building, do a lot of research about what they're building, and finally help take the investment forward. After that, once the entire team agrees that if we like the startup, we do the due diligence, and post that the other team takes up the process, doing the due diligence and all of that, and the legal team takes up writing the SHA, defining the terms of negotiation, etc. So for me, I'm the one who's supposed to scout the deals, do work on them, decide if you like them, you want to invest on them, present my views to the management and to the partners, and finally, if a deal is approved for investment, we also prepared the investment note. So for the IC committee, the investment committee, you prepare the investment note, which gets reviewed, and you decide if this is an investment that you want to make, if this is an investment that you don't want to make. So that's pretty much what I do.
So can you tell something about how do you perform deal sourcing and due diligence?
Sure. I mean, most VCs perform deal sourcing in very similar ways. LinkedIn is always one. Beyond that, you try to leverage your network, you build networks in the industry, try and meet new people. And then once you've made your network, you exchange deals. And yeah, that's pretty much how I source deals. Traction is also a very good source to source deals. And beyond that, what was the other question that you asked? Due diligence,
About
right?
due diligence.
Right. So due diligence is something that I don't perform, honestly. My work really ends at a lot of research. Due diligence is more to do about if the founders and what they're talking about is legit. More around what are the financials of the company? Are they legit? Do the founders of the companies have any sort of cases on them, criminal or otherwise? And there's a complete checklist that the DD team sort of performs. I'm not a part of that process.
Can you tell some resources which were helpful to you to develop investment related skills?
Honestly, everything that I've learned has been on the job. But other than that, there are a couple of great books that everybody should read if they're trying to get into VC. Something like I don't remember the name, but it's called, I think, Secrets of Sand Hill Road. Other than that, again, don't remember the names on the top of my head, but there are a couple of books that people can read to get into VC. But beyond that, more than investing, you should know how to look at a business, and that you can do when you're reading about how, let's say you're reading about Misho, right? And how they started, what are their margins like, if it makes sense or not. And then just doing more than just upar kam, I would say. You should look at you should read more about how a business really operates. More than reading books, I think you should pick up companies and see how they're performing and do some analysis on that. I think that's a better way.
Yeah, like reading books are really helpful. I also read the same books, Sandhill one, and it was really amazing book. Do you think that startup winter is currently there in India?
Yes. It's very normal. There are cycles of investment, of course, where there is a sudden inflow of money and the investments are really very frequent, and then there are periods when the investments are not as frequent, and that's always a cycle. So yes, we are in that cycle right now.
What are your thoughts related to the fintech industry in India? And also, what do you expect some new developments in this space?
I think fintech in India is one of the better sectors that we have, honestly. Better than Europe. I mean, on par with Europe and better than the US. So, I mean, we've really made some breakthroughs when it comes to fintech. There are a couple of companies that I really like and what they're doing in fintech. For example, Jupiter. I really like what Jupiter does. I really like what Wind does. Some of the spaces that I really like in the and some of the sub verticals that I really like in the fintech space include wealth tech and more on the embedded fintech side. And also when you look at the Web3 side of things, I really like how DeFi is playing out. In what's next, I would say it's really hard to define that for fintech because it's a really saturated market. But RBI recently rolled out a payments vision for 2025 report. So I feel like that could be potentially be new grounds for new startups, and essentially, I mean, we'll have to see, but I think payments could be another thing. Just basis the I haven't read the document yet, but basis the document that they've released and how they're thinking about bringing changes into the entire payment stack. I think that that could be some. Uh, there should be a sliver of opportunity for innovation there.
Yeah, completely agree. The recent years in the fintech space has been really amazing. We have seen really great developments by Paytm, UPI system, and many others. What are your thoughts related to the applications of DeFi in everyone's life?
In everyone's life is a really long shot. So how I look at the market is that Indian investors and global investors. So even in Indian investors, there's only a handful of investors that are really mature and really looking at DeFi and different protocols. Then you look at outside Indian investors there. I mean, overall, there's a very small chunk of investors who are really mature and are really using DeFi products. And as it should be, because DeFi, again, is investing, and you should have proper knowledge about what you're investing in before investing in that particular asset class. So DeFi today does not have an impact on everybody's life, but it's essentially just a different, it's just another asset class just in Web3 where you stake your tokens or you farm your tokens and you make money on them. So it's more like lending and borrowing just on Web3.
Yeah, there is a high probability that DeFi will have good and more applications in upcoming future.
Sure.
Can you share some of your experience in fintech space where you helped to invest in some particular startups?
We haven't announced them yet, so I won't be able to share the names. But the process was pretty much simple. We got the deal. I did work on it. I researched a lot on it, looked at global comparables, looked at Indian comparables, saw if the business was making sense in terms of unit economics, if how they make money makes sense, if how they spend money makes sense, etc., etc. There are a couple of things that you look at, and post that if there are things that you're okay to underwrite, if there is that you're okay to underwrite, you go ahead and present that case to the partners and the management. If they're also the ones who, if they're the ones, if they're also okay to take those risks, then the investment goes through. And that is how all the investments that I've made in across the not just fintech, across every other space have been structured. So yeah.
Any last message that you would like to give to all our viewers who wanted to get into the VC field?
So everybody's experiences are different. Mine has been really different. I've been fortunate to have somehow gotten into the startup ecosystem really early during school itself. So I got that time to read a lot about startups, to read a lot about businesses. I really understood what I liked, what I did not like. And for anybody who's trying to get into venture capital, I would say that there's no short way. Everybody's experiences can be different. It's just that you should know how to read, how to research, and really get insights out of facts. So build that habit, and I think that should take you, and you should be fine.
Yes, I also completely agree that one needs to know themselves really well to know what they like, what they don't like, and then take the decisions accordingly, and then like doubling down on that path as it goes. Thank you, Sonali, for taking out time to share your experience. It would be really helpful for a lot of the students. Thank you.
Of course, Mother. It was great talking to you. Thank you.